This is Brimster, and I'm now going to try session 7 of my solo D&D campaign with Romina and Vint. So I think since the last session I've updated the map. I have not been able to find time to do this in over a week, so I'm a little rusty on what was happening. But as we know, the Romina and Vint had travelled out of Deep Scar. They travelled to Nenda and found the bandit camp. Then they did the combat with the bandits, and they travelled up to what turned out to be a place called the Meveldi Farm. All of this is developed. You can watch all of this being discovered and developed on camera. That's the cool thing about this. And at the end of the last session, as they're about to approach the Meveldi Farm, I rolled to see what they would find. And this was stuff that they don't know about yet. They don't know is coming. But we, as sort of the storyteller as well, I do kind of know what they're going to find, but not how they're going to find it. So what I'm planning on doing at some point is recording an intro to this series, which will explain the books I'm using and everything. I have got some new books since I last spoke. So I've been able to pick up the GM's Miscellany series. I've picked up some of those books, which I can use to help generate some more random elements. These had been recommended to me. So I haven't yet looked through those. Whether I'll use them in this session, I don't know. But they're basically just more books of random tables, which are good. I've tried to spend some time reading through the books to become more familiar with them. But of course, this will just come with use. It's like anything. And one of the things I do want to stress is if you're following through this series, if you're not played D&D before, I highly recommend getting the core rulebooks to see what I'm doing. I'm not going to try and release leak the way the rule books work here in too much detail. And the Solo Adventures Toolbox series, which I link to in the descriptions, are definitely worth picking up. They're not that expensive. That's if you want to try and follow along with what I'm doing. But of course, feel free to just watch. I mean, I'm not telling you to, I'm kind of suggesting go buy stuff, but I'm not telling you what to do. These are just the tools I'm using, and I'm going to promote them because these are books that I've bought that I am using. They're not paid promotion or anything. The authors don't even know I'm doing this to the best of my knowledge, but these are the books I'm using. So of course I think they're worth getting. So, right, I've completely lost the flow of how I'm going to do this. So we've got Romina and Vint on they've travelled to the farm, and basically they're going to move up, and what I figured is going to happen is, let's create another map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the map tool, and I'm going to create a new map, which is literally just going to be an empty map, which I can use. It's just going to be big enough. I don't know how big the squares are going to be. So at the moment, I'm just going to use it to draw a map. I'm going to make it a little bit wider. The tool I'm using here, by the way, is Roll20. Someone did ask me why I'm using Roll20 when there are other tools out there. When Roll20 was first conceived, I think way back, oh crikey, it would have been over 10 years ago now. It was announced as a Kickstarter, and I backed it on Kickstarter. I thought it was a very, very cool concept, a virtual tabletop where you could play with people. And I backed it at Kickstarter at quite a high level. And one of the rewards I got for that, I didn't even know at the time, I don't think, is I've basically become a lifetime member of Roll20. So I've got lots of storage and stuff on Roll20. So I've kept using it. I haven't used it a lot. During lockdown, I used it for my D&D campaigns, and we've kept playing online, even with people I used to play with in real life, because we find it's easier to just rather than sort of plan our weeks around how we're going to travel to each other's houses, because we now live like an hour and a half away from each other. We just sort of log on and play. And if we have to cancel a session, we haven't put as many people out. It's been really, really good that way. Anyway, back to this. So there's a farm. So I do have complaints with the system, but it's pretty good. So what I'm going to say is they're coming in from the south, and what they're going to see is they're basically going to come across sort of some fields which are open. Now, as they approach, they do hear the buzzing and everything. So these are just basically fences. I'm not going to try and draw a detailed map here. So they come against fences, and within the fences, they are going to see sort of some field areas. And these aren't 5 foot squares. This is just a representative map. What I am going to do is I'm going to jump to the token map. I'm just going to grab a token of Romina. I should not have drawn on the map, but that's what I did by mistake. I'll clean that up later. I'm just going to grab a token of Romina as an approximate location. So this is not supposed to be... and what I might also do on this map is I might go into the settings. Very, very cool thing, by the way, what this does. I'm going to turn off the grid. So um, so they're basically approaching from the south, and they arrive and they can see some crops up ahead, and there's all of these bugs and stuff that they can see. And in the distance, let's just do some more freeform drawing if I can. They're going to see, I just need a different color. There's lots of varieties of color here, and I'm going to use things that stand out. In the distance, they can kind of see some buildings, and they see sort of the front of some buildings and then some buildings off to the side. Let's just draw some. These are probably not to scale. As I said, I'm just making this up as I go along. So I don't have, or I've not seen any farmland tables, but what would there be in a farm? So let's use the Oracle. I'm out of practice. So there would be a farmhouse. I don't even need to roll on that. Would there be a barn? I think it's phenomenally likely there's going to be a barn, so I'm not even going to roll on that. Would there be silos and stuff? I think it's likely. So yes, there is silos, and there's an and on that because it was likely. So are the silos damaged in some way? Or are they unusual in some way? Like, do they store something different, or are they small? Like, are they grain silos? They're not grain silos. So is this like, are they like small are they like storing fruit or something? So instead of being silos, are they like fruit vats or something? No, they're not fruit vats. Is this a vineyard? Like, is this a place where they're growing, like, are there barrels and there's like piles of barrels or something like that? I'm not sure how vineyards work. Yeah, so, okay, so there's something here which is a storage of barrels. So let's turn around, and I'll use purple for that because, as I said, I'm not drawing a map, I'm doing something representative. So let's turn around and say what they can see is there's like barrel storage. In an area. And I don't know how that's going to look. I know nothing about this stuff. I'm making it up. I'm imagining, again, I've said this before, it's a video game concept. So if you came across a vineyard in a video game, what would you expect? You wouldn't expect phenomenal realism. You would expect something that is going to be representative of a vineyard. So that would mean that these are all vines, and the fence would continue. So again, I'm not going to try and match colors. So the fences would continue, and there would be gates. So let's turn around and say that this is conveniently about the same size and shape as the map. And there are vines. Again, I'm going to try and pick a green. Don't care if it matches. And these are sort of rows of vines in different areas, going possibly in different directions for the different types. I have no idea how this works. People who know something about vineyards may turn around and say, you're doing this wrong. Great. And there might be a small area of vegetables and stuff, but you've got your vineyard, and then you've got some other stuff growing, maybe not, because people need to feed themselves. And there might be some animal pens or something, maybe up. Yeah, let's put some. Are there animal pens? That's a good question. No, there's actually not. So this place is sufficient on other places to get all of their food and stuff. And of course, if there's brewery, the barn would be storing. Is the barn only storing the stuff for that? So is this the work shed and everything? Um, yes, it is. But there was something about, oh, that's right, there was the area. So the foundry, is that attached to the barn? Because remember, this is the place that had the small metal shop and everything. So this is the place that possibly had, were they working on, did they mostly do tools and stuff? Yes, they did. So there's a small foundry here as well. So I'm going to go back to the red. It's probably going to be the wrong red, but whatever. But off here, there is a small foundry, and let's put a smokestack on it to represent. So there's a small foundry. There is a barn, which is probably connected by a connecting door. So let's put a small connecting door on it, just, because, and that be wide enough that things could you could carry things through it. So it's quite a wide door, so you could put a wagon through it or whatever if you had to. So it's a big door. And then you've got the farmhouse area, and then the rest of it is sort of open and everything, and there'd be gates and everything around it. So this gives me an overall idea of a layout of a farm. But anything around here is all of this stuff is covered by insects. So this is where the vines have been infected or whatever by these insects or anything. Now, are the insects to do with the plague? No. So it's possible just there's a blight that has come from the vine. So something has happened and the insects have come in, and normally there would be the people here to protect it. So I'm assuming all the people here are dead. Yes, and so the people here are dead, and I rolled a 20. So does that mean something has gone wrong? Does the Ooh, I rolled a 20. Now, the 20 means that there's a huge yes and. So they're not just dead. Are the people undead? Yes, and I rolled a 19. So the people here are undead. Is the undeath caused by the plague? So is it is there a chance in certain circumstances that this disease could lead to people going undead? No. Okay, so something else has happened. Does it have to do with the symbol and everything they were making? Yes. Okay. So I don't know how and I don't know why, but because of the thing that was happening, there's been this sort of necromantic effect. Okay, so there's a necromantic effect and there's actually undead here. So what I need to do is I need to find some undead of the right difficulty level. Okay, was not expecting that. So what I need is type undead. There are filters here. So I've got access to some trying to find where the type is. Here we go. So I've got some low level undead that I could use here. It's probably just going to be skeletons or zombies. Skeleton zombies are CR quarter, skeletons are CR quarter. Those are actually quite tricky. So if I look at the book, so they skeletons or zombies? Let's keep it simple for now. They are skeletons. So there are some skeletons. So some of the people in the area have been animated. So we're actually going to put some skeletons in. So R and V approach the farm. I'll attach the map later, which has the insect infestation. The farm is a vineyard, and the vines have drawn the bugs, in addition to there being a strange necromantic effect caused by the creation of the what did I call it? Did I call it the symbol? Let's call it a whole, the symbol. Did something go wrong in making the symbol, or was it something? Yeah, let's not do the or. Did something go wrong in making the symbol? Yes. So something went wrong in making the symbol, and the people involved have been turned into. I think I said skeletons. Let's go with skeletons. Skeletons. Now, with them being turned into skeletons, was it a combination of the ritual and the plague? Was that the thing that did it? So people with the plague will be fine if they're not trying to create the holy symbol, and vice versa. Yes. Okay. So it was a combination of the plague and or disease and the creation that caused this effect. So skeletons are CR. I think I said a quarter. Um, Skeleton CR14. So the question is, if I look up in the table, I hate how it does that, but it does. If I look up in the monster encounters for solo PC table, um, how many of those do we expect? So we want a level 1, happy for this to be hard. So 1 CR quarter for a single solo PC is it's single. What I need is the doubling table. So for 2 PCs, if I want a level 1 hard, I want a level 2 hard. So if I want a level 2 hard, then I want a CR quarter and a CR 1/8. So what I want is, they did okay last time, so I'm just going to go with there's 2 skeletons, which could be a deadly encounter, although it says, yeah, deadly is 2 CR 1 quarters. So this could be a deadly encounter. So 2 skeletons. Now, what do I know about skeletons? So let's bring up skeletons. They don't have a lot of hit points. And I'm deliberately not trying to give away too much about it. So what I need is I need some skeleton tokens. Now, I don't think I've got skeleton tokens in my thing. I'm actually not going to, I might end up running this as a map encounter. But the skeletons are probably going to be in the area where the amulet is made. So let's just quickly draw sort of, this is where the monsters are going to be. Actually, I will undo that and I'm just going to do it. Oh, I can't undo both. Okay, that's weird. I have not used this in a while. So let's just do a text and put skeletons in here. So they'll be in the area because this is the forge. And there was also a pit trap, and I'm going to put the pit trap in the barn. So what there is in the barn is where the pit trap is. And the pit trap was there's an opening to the basement. Why is there a basement? Is it like a storm cellar? Like, is this where something... Yeah, is it a storm cellar? No. So is this a is it a storage room for the barrels and stuff? So when barrels are prepared and everything and they go for long-term storage. Yes. So there's a barrel cellar. So there's like a wine cellar and stuff. So there's a way down to the wine cellar, possibly a couple of entrances, and there's an opening that they can go down via a ladder, and that's been damaged, and there's a tarp over it, and that's the pit trap. And there was stuff under it, if I remember correctly. So despite pit trap, there's a cellar which is open and covered by a fallen tarp. So there's a tarp that's fallen over it and everything, and it might be hard to notice and save. Okay, so that's where everything is as our characters approach. Cool. So, what are we going to do? So, that's right. I was looking for. Actually, I don't know if I've got them. I may not need them. I just might run this as a combat without. So, so this is in the forge. Not everyone has turned into area. 2 skeletons and the spiked pit trap is in the barn area. Okay. So, as they approach, what do they see? So, do they find a gateway or anything? I think it's likely they'll find a gateway approaching, but yeah, they find a gateway. So, they're able to enter. Now, this isn't too tricky for them um, to sort of get in. At which point, as I said, there's an animal handling roll. Now, I don't think I came up with a difficulty for that. So, is it really hard? Like, how many are there? I think this is because this was supposed to be quite tricky. They're harmless, but they're going to impact. So I'm going to call this quite a challenging animal handling role because there's so many bugs. Because this was like an area with lots of sweet, sickly stuff. So I'm going to call this quite noticeable, and I'm going to call the animal handling to try and get a lot of bugs off your face and everything, and not make them distracting. I'm going to call it DC 15. So let's say DC 15 animal handling handling to deal with the bugs. And as the situation changes, I might do this again, but I'm going to call this just overall. And I think it was they get disadvantage. Yeah, on anything that makes them swarm. So, okay. So, DC 15 animal handling. So, we go to the characters. We'll do Romina first, who does not have animal handling. Now, book looking up the skill table. I used to know where all of this was, but it's been a while because I haven't played in a while. So skills are about 173 in the Players Handbook. I highly recommend people get these books. Even if you're not playing yourself, the Players Handbook is well worth a read. You'd learn a lot by doing it. Animal handling is wisdom. Of course it is. So I'm going to make a wisdom roll. And Romina actually makes it. So Romina passes. So Romina passes. And Vint is also going to make an animal handling roll. And he has animal handling. So he's at +5. He fails. That's the way rolls work. And Vint fails. So Vint is anything that is going to be causing him to make like a. What would you. Anything where having lots of bugs like in your face or dealing with it. So anything, particularly dexterous or anything is where you might have to make a roll. So they go through and they're basically they walk around the fields of all the vegetables and stuff. I think there's no reason to walk through the mulchy ground with where all the bugs are actually gathering and everything. Do they see that this is a vineyard by looking off to the side? I think they do, but I'm going to make perception rolls for them anyway. Romina gets no disadvantage. She fails. Vint does get disadvantage and he fails as well. So they're not really sure. They might be able to smell something sickly. So can they smell something sickly in the air? I'm going to say they can. They can smell there's definitely something sickly going on, like that sweet tang, but they're not sure what it is. And they approach the farm and they're aware that there's almost certainly no one living here. Like something bad has happened here. And as I said, this is not to scale. Like this could be, as much as, I don't know, 30 feet. I really don't know. I haven't decided what that's going to be. And they're pushing forward to try and figure out. Now, they were here as a mission for the dwarves to find out why the shipments had stopped. And it's very, very clear that the shipments have stopped from here because no one is looking after the place. Now, do they want to find out? How determined are they to find out what happened to everyone? Doing all of this and then finding out that they're not going to push on is a little bit silly. But, characters may be cautious. I think it's unlikely they're going to be cautious. Romina's not cautious. Vint is, but that's possibly because of the bugs in his face. But he'll follow Romina because she's not cautious at all. So, they're going to push on. And they'll get to about here, and then I'm going to roll perception checks for them to see if they can tell what's going on here. Like, do they see the barrels? Like, just a base perception check. I'll do Vint first. Vint completely fails. Like all of the bugs in his face are really bothering him. And even Romina doesn't really have a clue. So she can see that there's buildings and sort of that seems to be a workshop and that seems to be a house, but she can't really tell what's going on. Now, how many people lived here, I suppose, is a good question. Now, it would have been a farm, so it would have been quite a few. There was a couple of people who were skilled at metalworking. There would have been a few people who were skilled at making the wine, but that would have been several. I'm going to say this wasn't on season, so I'm going to say there would have been at least, I'm going to say there's a D4 plus 4 people who used to live here. So that would have been a number between 5 and 8. And there was actually 7. So there were 7 people who lived here. So there were 7 people who lived on this farm. Are they all still here? I think it's likely that their bodies are here to be found. Yes. All of which are here to be found. Now, it was a yes and, so I'm going to say there's a chance that it was almost a yes and. It was a high roll. I'm going to say it was a chance that someone else is here as well. There is someone else here. Now, was it someone who was here to oversee the making of the amulet? Yes, and. So there was someone here to oversee the making of the amulet as well. I keep thinking of things to say. Someone who'd watched my videos had turned around and said, be more creative, rely less on the dice. And if you have an idea, just roll with it. I'm having an idea and then I'm using the dice to say, do I want to run with this? So I'm not just making it fully up as I go along. I probably should do less of the dice to throw out ideas. If I have an idea and it seems fun, go with it. So is the person who is here to oversee the making of the amulet, were they a representative of the cleric it was being made for? Like, were they like an acolyte or something in secret? Because remember, the cleric was in hiding because of the dwarves. I'm actually going to do the dice for that one. Yes. So there was someone here oversee the making of the amulet as well. It was an acolyte, I can't spell, of the cleric in hiding who was untrained because training was dangerous as the dwarves had outlawed any power except their own. Now, did this acolyte, I mean, this might be one of the 2 people who was making it. Is this acolyte the one of the skeletons? No. The acolyte is not one of the skeletons. Is he something worse? Yes. He is something worse. So there might be another combat afterwards. So they might deal with the skeletons and then have to find the acolyte. Okay, so that could be interesting. Was it deliberate that he messed it up? No, it wasn't. So something went wrong. Okay, cool. What went wrong? We may never find out. Okay, so they're approaching. Do they want to go for the house or do they want to go for the barn? I think they're interested in people, so they're probably going to go for the house first. So they go for the house. Is it a single or 2-story? I think it's unlikely to be 2-story, although this is a place that is built up, so it could easily be 2-story. So I'm just going to go for a roll. It is a single-story place, so it is quite a big property, lots of rooms. People would have shared lots of rooms and everything, so it would have been a big communal cooking area, a big communal social area. A lot of the stuff would have been done outside, so there wouldn't be like lots of big entertainment rooms inside. The inside rooms would have been more practical, and there would have been a lot of people sharing rooms. So any kids here or anything? Are there kids? It's likely that there are. But they're actually not. The roll was very low. So it was mostly adult. So it's adults only. Some people, all of which are here to be found, no children, which is a good thing. So they're all workers. They enter the house, and I'm going to basically at this point jump, and there are clue tables or something, and what I might do is I might just roll on the keywords. I'd completely I'm out of practice. Roll on the keywords table and see if anything jumps out at me for what they might find that could be relevant to this story. So let's roll on the keywords table. So this is exploring the house. So exploring the house. And let's do a keywords for what they might find in the house. Or I could do some items as well, but I can't remember if I'd rolled or not, so I'm going to roll again. 638. 638. Admission. I don't know what that is. Keywords may be the wrong thing here, but let's see what I come up with. I always have to skip a lot of pages when I do this. Patrol. This is not working. I might just roll on items. I have to jump all the way to the bottom of the list again. Health. Yeah, this is not working. So, patrol, health. Yeah, let's just roll on the items table if I can find it. So let's try and find the items table. So there is an item table which is between 1 and 400. So what I want to roll is that. I find, okay, items. So they find a jug or pitcher, which makes sense in this location, but is there something special about the jug or pitcher? It being a vineyard, like is there a brand or something on it? No. Okay, so is that actually relevant? No. Okay, so that's let's roll again on items and see if there's anything obvious. What is that? No, I know what that is, and that's not going to be something they find that is relevant. I'm going to move on from this. So they explore the house and they find nothing unusual. Nothing's jumping out at me. So none of this makes me feel it's relevant. But I'm going to keep them just in case something else happens that makes me come back to this. Like maybe one of the women involved, sorry, I'm being gender biased here. Maybe one of the people who lived in the house was the local healer, and one of the things that they grew in the garden was herbs and stuff. That's where the health could come up. So maybe actually, yeah, it was one of the people a healer, and one of the things they grew here was herbs and stuff. Yes, and so one that actually works. One of the people who lived here was a local herbalist slash healer, and there were herbs here that would be used to heal the locals. Is it those? Was it those that has caused not the plague or anything, but has also contributed to there being so many bugs? No. Okay, so the bugs are definitely just part of the necromantic effect, and everything has called them, possibly even summoned them. Okay, so like a video game effect, you walk into an area where there has been evil stuff happen, and there's just bugs everywhere. And because bugs came to a place where there was a vineyard that wasn't being protected and the stuff had started to possibly rot or anything, they fed off each other and they went wild and bred like mad. Okay, so they explore the house, and there were 7 people here. So how many of those 7 people are in the house? I'm just going to roll a percentage. So, so there was one person in the house. So there is only one person in the house. Is it that healer person? I think it should be. I'm just going to say yes. It's the healer person who was found with the picture of herbs. Um, and seems to have like do they seem to have like fallen suddenly or anything? Yeah. Um, Like, actually, could it have been the effect caused by whatever the acolyte is? Maybe I need to determine what the acolyte is that is worse. I'm not sure what it could be. Actually, I do have an idea what it could be. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down my monster manual. This is one of the books that is in the core set. And I'm going to look up, is this a shadow? Yeah, I think this could be a shadow. And what happened is the acolyte became corrupted and turned into a shadow. I don't have enough desk space. The perpetual problem of D&D players everywhere, not enough places to put your books. So I think this has become a shadow, and this person has been killed by the shadow. And so what has happened is seems to have been drained somehow, and it's like their skin has been desiccated, but not in a way like there's no wounds on them, and they seem to have like been feared. So they have fallen with where they were standing, a look of terror on their face. So, is there a chance that Romina or Vint has seen this before? I think Romina, it's a very, very low chance. So, Romina might be able to make a check of some point to understand what this is, but I think it's basically going to be an intelligence check with disadvantage. And she does okay, but she's not enough to figure this out. Vint is just going to make a flat out intelligence check to figure out has he seen this before. And he's got an idea that some form of undead may have done this. Feels that some form of undead may have done this, but he doesn't know what. So he may have heard stories about people encountering the dead that have risen and this happening. Okay, so was not expecting this at all. This could be a horrible encounter from them, but they go through the house and everything is just normal. Like the kitchen is normal, all the food is like this is crawling with different sorts of bugs and everything, and even inside, like they where everything was a bit closed off, the bugs are less, but there's a lot more crawly stuff. So they're not flying as much in the house as much as crawling, but there are still bugs everywhere, and when they go outside, it's still pretty terrible. So they leave the house again, and there would have been some doors in the house. So if I go back to drawing freehand and I'm putting some black, there would have been, a door at the front, there would have been a door at the side, there would have been a door at the back. But they come back out and whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. And they head towards the barn. Now, the barn will also have some large doors. Why does it always change the color? I wish it would remember your previous color. The barn would have some large doors. This would have a small door. This would have a door at the back, and the barn would also have sort of a large door at the back. So there's lots of ways to move through this area. Um, and do they notice that there's a foundry as well as the barn? Let's do perception checks. Again, Vint is at negatives. Vint doesn't notice anything in particular. Romina does. And she will call it out to Vint. So if one of them makes something, they're both aware of it. So what they've found is this place, there's got that acrid smell in the air that this is probably something going on. They found the herbs and everything. There's a barn, but the foundry area, like the walls are more built up. The barn is made of wood, but the foundry area, the walls are probably made of stone. Yes, the walls are definitely made of stone. Not only that, the whole building is made of stone with that roll. So as they approach the barn slash foundry, so no, smith. Let's call it smith. It's not a foundry. It's a smith area. So smith. So exploring the barn slash smith. Um, the smith area is a fully stone building. So it's obviously purpose built for this. And they can't, from their angle, however, so they can't see the big the stack at the back or anything. So it is obviously something a little different. So it is obviously something different. Now, do they go towards the barn? I think it's likely they're going to go towards the foundry rather than the barn. Yes, they are. Again, I'm doing this by roll because nothing weird. And they'll approach the door and they will go in through the door. Now, as they go into the foundry, let's go to a new map, which I probably won't keep because normally I try and keep copies of the maps, but I'm recording everything. So let's create a new map. Doesn't need to be too large. It's not going to be a huge area, so I'm going to draw a shape on this. It's not going to be too large. If these are 5 feet squares, this is probably big enough, and I should have done that in black. So let's undo that. Let's do this in black. Actually, I'll do it here. So 5 by 5 is enough, and then I'm going to draw another one, which is going to be the barn, and I'm going to make that bigger. That's big enough. And then I'm going to do doors, which I will do. I'll keep this close to what I had. So let me just have a look at what I had. So I'd had a door at the back. Right, so let's keep it close. I can't keep both open, unfortunately, and it's slow to flip through. So let's move these down. We put in a forge at the back. We put in a door, sort of, I'll use these colors, a door here, a door here, a large door here, a large door here, and let's say there's a large door here. So that's what we've got for the area. It's good enough. And they go, and then I want tokens for Romina and Vint. So I want those, and let's use just guard tokens again. Doesn't need to be anything special. So we go here and let's paste those in. I did get the guard. So there are 2 skeletons in here. So let's move Romina and Vint over first. So Romina is going to go first. This is just going to happen. They've had a chance to rest, so they're on full hit points, and I'm going to rename this token to skeleton, and I'm going to, I know who, what is going on? Copy and paste, and there are 2 skeletons in here. Now there's all sorts of tables and stuff in here, so let's put one behind. Let's put a table in the middle. So objects, no, that's not what I want. I want to draw. No, I want to draw. Wow, I want to draw a shape. I'm going to make these sort of a blue so that they could call it out. There's a big work table in the middle. There's a table at the end. There's a table down here. And let's put a table sort of up here. So that's some stuff that they have to move around. I should have put all that stuff on the map layer. So let's... What's going on? What's going on? Okay, so what I now want to do is I want to select everything. I think I can move those all to the map. No, move all. Wow. Something very weird is going on. So objects and tokens, select it all. Where is it all gone? So that's all gone to the map layer. Map layer, great. I then want to select that, 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 and move those to the token layer. And then when I go to the token layer, I should be able to move the tokens, but not the objects. Great. Now, sorry, I'm not very practiced at this, and I'm still getting used to it. Well, it's been a while. So, as Romina and Vint walk in, are the monsters just hostile? I think it is likely they are. They are mindless things that are here to protect, or they've just been driven insane and raised by the negative energy here. So they're probably just hostile. They are absolutely hostile. So Romina walks up. Vint is basically behind her. She opens the door and we immediately enter combat. So let's go to the character sheets. Romina has 13 hit points. Vint has 10. So we can put 10 into Vint's hit points. We can select Romina and put 13 into her hit points. The skeletons have 13 each. So this could be a tough fight. Like, this could be a problem for them. But we'll see how it goes. So, and immediately we go to initiative. So, the character, sorry, R and V. I keep trying to say the heroes or whatever. In my campaigns, I normally call the characters heroes, but R and V enter the forge, and the skeletons immediately attack. So we have the skeletons' initiative. I don't think they have an initiative bonus. So their initiative is 17. So we have an encounter here. Encounter, which I think we were doing with skeletons. So I'm going to do this so I can find them. Initiative. The skeletons are on 17. No, they're on 19. Romina is, I think, at +1, +2, as is Vint. So the R and V are both at +2. So Romina is on 16 and Vint is on 8. So Romina is 16 and Vint is 8. So it's skeletons, Romina, and Vint. So the skeletons are going to attack first. Romina opens the door, at which point the skeletons, she's like, what's going on? The bugs, basically, the skeletons are not impacted by the bugs at all. Romina is. So there's this whole number of bugs, because this was the center of it all. There's this huge swathe of bugs that basically comes out, and Romina is like, what's going on? And while that happens, the skeletons are going to move up and attack. So the one that's directly in front is literally just going to move up and attack Romina. Now, it's going to block the door. They're not very smart. So as it attacks, it's using a short sword. So it's literally just got this weapon. This was a forge, so it's basically got a weapon. And it's just attacking with the weapon mindlessly. It's going to hit Romina, and it's going to hit her fairly hard. Romina takes 5 points of damage and goes down to 8 hit points. Youch. Youch. The other one is going to move up and it's going to try and attack, but because Romina's outside, Romina has some cover. Don't care if this is the right rule. I'm just doing it. And it absolutely misses. So it misses that. Romina is like, holy cow, there's a skeleton in front of me. She doesn't even notice the one off to the door, off the side of the door. So she draws her weapons, which she can absolutely do. Like, supposedly what's supposed to happen is, I think, drawing weapons is a bonus action or anything, and then her offhand attack is supposed to be a bonus action. I'm going for heroic here. I don't care. She's not going to move, so therefore she can do both. Yeah. GM is allowing it. So Ramina's first attack, and I think she's still using D6s because she's using scimitars. Yeah, so she's got a good attack. So she's going to attack the skeleton. Sorry, I should have zoomed in more. So she's going to attack the skeleton, and she is absolutely going to hit the skeleton, and she's going to hit it for 8 points of damage. So this skeleton drops down to 5 hit points. Now it doesn't have any resistances to the damage she's got. Now she would, if she was using a different weapon, that might be vulnerable, but yeah, it's fine. So she manages to hammer it hard, and she's now going to do a follow up attack with her offhand weapon, which hits an armor class 12 but isn't quite enough, so she sort of stabs at it because she's used to stabbing with it, and sort of it slides through a gap where there would normally be stuff, but because it's a skeleton there's no stuff there for it to do, and it doesn't do any damage at all. Vint is like behind Romina, is like, what's going on? But he's not out of it enough that he can't enter combat. So what he's going to do is he's going to do the trick that he tried to do last time. So what Vint is going to try and do is he's going to stand back and he's going to summon this ball of flame in his hand, and he's going to throw it because he can't reach the skeleton because Romina's in the way. He's going to throw it at the skeleton. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring up my copies of the online spells, and this is produce flame. So you can also attack with the flame. Make a ranged spell attack. So I don't know if I've actually figured out what his spell attack should be, but it will be, I'm pretty certain, and I'm not going to slow down the session for it, but I'm pretty certain it's going to use his wisdom spell. So it's going to be 8. He's going to be at +3, I think, to attack. I have not got this written down, but I think it's at +3. So I'm just going to, I'll have to confirm this, but for now I'm just going to use +3. So let's just call it +3. So he's going to make an attack at +3. He absolutely hits the skeleton with that roll, and he does a D8 of damage to the skeleton, which is only 3 points of damage, which I think is not enough. It burns the skeleton, but it's not enough for it to drop the skeleton down. Does he want to do anything else? Now, I can't remember the rules of casting multiple spells. I don't think he can. There is something about being able to cantrip and stuff like that. So in the combat section or whatever, there is something about being able to. And I shouldn't be wasting time while on camera, but getting the rules right is kind of important. And there is something about being able to cast multiple spells in combat if one is a bonus action. And I don't remember where that is. I'm looking up, trying to look up bonus actions, but I'm not finding it clearly. I'm not going to take too much longer for this. Actually, I might quickly look it up in the index because that's what it's for. It's a very, very detailed index, and it can be sometimes hard. Okay, it's sending me to casting time, so now I need to look up casting time. Okay, it says page 202. I thought that's where I was just looking. This is not helping me. You must use a bonus action to cast the spell, provided you haven't already taken a bonus action this turn. You can't cast another spell during the same turn, except for a cantrip with a casting time of 1 action. But because Produce Flame is a cantrip, but these are 2 cantrips. I think that would work. So he's casting a cantrip with 1 action and a cantrip as a bonus action. So he's also casting Shillelagh. Okay, I'm going to allow it. Okay, I probably should have made a GM call earlier. I'm going to allow it. He can produce flame and Shillelagh on the same turn. So he turns his staff into a better weapon. The skeletons then get to attack Romina again. So the first skeleton does an attack on Romina and hits for 3 points of damage. So Romina drops down to 5 hit points. That was minimum roll. And it can't push or anything. The other one, again, Romina has cover and manages to miss because Romina has cover. It's not great cover, but it's enough that it's going to miss. Romina, then there's a special ability that Romina has for being a fighter called. Actually, no, she's not going to spend her. She's got a thing called Healing Surge, and Healing Surge as a fighter allows her to heal herself, but I think she has to use her action to do it. And she could possibly do that, but I think she needs to have attacked to take the 2-handed action. This is me learning. I should possibly have studied this, but not everything is perfect. So Healing Surge as a fighter. This is what a lot of D&D is like, by the way. Healing Surge. Oh, no, it's Second Wind. Oh, no, Healing Surge is something different. Healing Surge is something I'm allowing this campaign. Healing Surge, you can use a bonus action to regain hit points. So she's not going to take her second attack. She's going to use her Second Wind. So the first thing she's going to do is she's going to attack the skeleton. So she's going to make an attack against the skeleton, which uses that. She's going to hit the skeleton for 3 points of damage, and that is going to kill the skeleton. So that's not what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was this, which is my normal way of marking the skeleton as dead. And in fact, I'm going to move it out of the way. So the skeleton falls and crumbles into a pile of bones. She's then going to use her bonus action to do Second Wind, and she regains 1d10 hit points plus her fighter level. So she's going to get a d10 plus 1 hit point. She gets 9 hit points back. Now, her maximum is 13, so she can only go to 13. But she gets all of her hit points back. But she has now used her Second Wind. So I will go to the character tracking and I will say that she has used her Second Wind. Now, what I should look up is Healing Surge, because Healing Surge is something I am using in this campaign. And I do want to have in mind how it works, because I think it's going to come up. Healing Surge is not actually listed in the index, because why would it be? Okay. So, I'm just going to Google this. Character can use a Healing Surge and spend up to half his or her hit dice. So it's your normal hit dice recovery, but you can do it in combat as an action. Okay, cool. But Romina had that bonus available. Now Romina is now going to move into the room, see the other skeleton, and go, "Holy cow!" but doesn't have anything left. So Romina is. This has always been a problem with this. Is you can't, because of the pop-ups, you can't spin. You need to select that little square there to be able to spin the icon. I like spinning it to face, but I can't spin it because the green thing is over the top of it. I need to do that, and it's really annoying. And then I need to do, it's just a minor annoyance, and it's not terrible, but yeah, whatever. Now Vint is able to move into the room and attack the skeleton with his shillelagh. And shillelagh is +5 to attack and a D8 +3. So he's going to attack the skeleton for good damage, I hope. No, he is going to miss the skeleton. And that's that done. And the skeleton is going to turn and it will attack one of them randomly. I know it doesn't look like a skeleton. I'm using the guard icon, remember? So we go back to the top of the combat. The skeleton is just going to mindlessly attack, and it's going to mindlessly attack Vint because I'm using the D6. I rolled a 3 and I was going left to right. So it's going to mindlessly attack Vint, and it's again attacking with this, and it's going to hit Vint, and Vint is going to take 5 points of damage. So that is 5 points of damage for Vint. So hits him for half of his health. We then go to Romina, who is probably going to tear up a new one. Here's hoping. Romina criticals. I think this is my first critical. So not only, so what I get to do is I get to roll the damage dice twice, but I only get to add on the bonus once. So Romina would do 1d6 +3, but she's going to do 2d6 +3. Now, I normally roll my damage dice at the same time, so I'm keeping the first damage die roll. Holy cow, I rolled 2 6s. So I just did 15 points of damage and just destroyed a skeleton. So Romina, having seen the first sword slip through the gap as she missed, she pushes one sword through a gap, the other sword through the gap, and then just goes snap and breaks the thing into pieces. Destroying the skeleton in a single move. That was a stunning move from Romina. Or possibly she did it with one sword, but yeah, glory kill. She used both of her swords to just tear the thing apart, going into the gaps and using them as levers. Stunning move. And of course, there's still bugs and stuff, and now there's bone ash and everything flying everywhere. So they managed to absolutely demolish the skeletons. At this point, Vint is going to heal himself. So the way that works is he's going to have to use an actual spell. So a first level spell of Cure Wounds. So Cure Wounds. So the way Cure Wounds works is he actually has to use one of his spell slots. So he's only got 2 and he's using one of them. And he gets 1d8 plus his spellcasting modifier, which for Vint is 3. So he gets a d8 plus 3 hit points back. So he gets back enough hit points to put him back at full. But he did not like being wounded, so he goes back to 10 hit points. That was cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to the shadow. In case they encounter it. They'll probably encounter it because that's what's fun. I don't know where in this room the shadow is, but let's put it in here for now. That was fun. I enjoyed that one. Okay, and combat in video games tends to be very, very quick and all of that, but it also tends to be very formulaic. D&D is often the same, but you can actually explore things a little bit more. So, and you can have a bit more fun with it, and it's a collaborative storytelling experience, and you're not playing just with the numbers, and there's a very different feel to D&D. Hopefully you're getting that idea. Okay, so what we have now is they've killed the skeletons. Do the skeletons have any loot? Well, the answer is probably. So I'm going to go to the... Actually, they're probably... What loot is in the room? Let's do that. So let's go to... there is a loot table. I'm just trying to remember where it is. 1, 5, 2... Jumping around books is just part of what I'm going to have to do because, I can't have all 1,000 pages on top of me. So this was a CR quarter individual treasure table. So I am just going to roll 2 bits of individual treasure and see what they find. So one is going to be some copper pieces and one is going to be some electrum pieces. So we have 12 copper pieces, which I will add to the party loot. So party loot is here somewhere. party loot. I'll add 12 copper pieces, so that will make that 27. And I'll add some EP as well, electrum pieces. So 7, 8 electrum pieces. So electrum is less than silver, if I remember correctly. No, it's more than that. So I'll add, what did I roll? It was 8. 8 EP. And electrum pieces are not something you see very often. A lot of people don't use them in their gates, but why not? I can't even remember how electrum pieces translates. I think it's 5 silver per electrum piece or whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to be spending yet. So they find the money spread around the room and everything. Do they find any other interesting items in the room? So let's go back and roll. Let's roll a couple of times on the item table and see if anything jumps up. Item. So this is a D400. Most of the items here are meaningless. So if I roll something particularly terrible, then I'll just stop. So item table. So they defeat the skeletons with Romina, capital I always am terrible with this, ending one of them with a single critical hit. And what was the item? Searching the room, they find some coin and a large hammer, sledge, which has been balanced to be weapon capable. So there is a weapon, which, like a heavy weapon, which is basically a sledgehammer. I'm just trying to find the details of it. Romina as a two-handed fighter, I don't think is going to go for it. Equipment, weapons, page 146. You could look it up yourself. No, it's not a weapon. It's an item of some kind. How the heck? It's not even, yeah, weirdly enough, it's an item they didn't feel that was worth doing. So they actually find a sledgehammer, which is not a small thing to carry. So, but Romina is fairly strong, like very strong. So they find a large sledgehammer. So Romina's going to take the sledgehammer. So miscellaneous. She's got a hammer, sledge. So I'm just going to call it a sledgehammer. So sledgehammer. So she's found a sledgehammer, which she's carrying around for now, but it is quite heavy and she may get rid of it. Sledgehammers are like a good quality sledgehammer, which is what this is. I'm just going to change this to sledgehammer as well. Sledgehammer, PHB listing. So, but designed to, be able to knock down doors and stuff. So definitely something that could be very, very useful. Do they find anything else? It is possible. So I'm just going to go with a roll. They do find something else. So what's the next item they find? Remember, they are going to still find the amulet in here. So 157. They also find some chain in here and 10 feet of chain. So everything they're finding in here is very heavy. I'm going to add that to the party loot. So 10 feet of chain. So they're finding heavy things in here. the chances are now less likely they're going to find something useful, and they don't. Now, what they do find, and it's going to be very easy for them to find, I expect. So I'm going to make perception checks for them, but they're going to make it with advantage. So Romina is going to make a normal roll, and then because the chain and the sledgehammer were tools that were out. Um, but this thing was not hidden because they were actively working on it. So Ramina's going to make a rock with advantage, and Vint loses his disadvantage from having all the bugs around. So Romina has rolls okay, but not great. Vint, however, rolls fantastically. So Vint is the one who finds the gold and or the crafted symbol, and I'm going to mark that. He makes a religion check to see if he can identify what that is. There's no penalty on that whatsoever. He rolls terribly. And I should put a capital V for Vint. There's no bold or italic on this, but he is unable to recognize what it is. He can't tell if it's a religious symbol or if it's just a nice piece of jewelry. He does not know. I don't think either of them are able to tell that it is magical in any way, shape, or form, even though it kind of is. So they kind of search out this room, they find the coin, they find the chain and stuff, and it's a good quality chain, like it's not just working chain, so that it would be usable for, heavy chain is something that is sort of something that you can buy as a character. Whether they keep it or not, I'm not sure. I'm not worried about the encumbrance rules, but I'm also not gonna have them carrying around. Like, again, the video game concept. I kind of like the idea of in many video games you'll just keep upgrading your bags and upgrading your bags and upgrading your bags, and at some point you'll turn around and say, well, I'm carrying 25 sets of armor and blah and blah and blah, and I'm out in the wild and I'm wearing my skimpy outfit, but meanwhile let me pull out my spare two great swords. I don't mind that concept, but that's a little bit silly for D&D. But there are ways around that, which I will probably introduce into this campaign earlier rather than later. So, so they're done in this room, and they search it out. They search the forge, which is cold, and they're aware of what this thing is, and I'll give them just intelligence rolls. Do they figure out that this symbol was made here? Yeah, Vint is also able to figure out that this symbol was made here, but he does know it was made here, and it's clear the symbol was not in the mold, but he finds the mold that made it. He was aware that this is a metalworking shop, sort of a smithy which can repair weapons and stuff. Possibly it helps shoe horses and everything in the area. So he's aware of everything that's going on. I think they will then decide, because D&D characters always do this, they will decide to investigate the barn. So they're going to head in this direction. They'll push open the doors. When they push open the doors, there'll be another wave of bugs. I possibly should have been giving them disadvantages on attacks, but he only hit once, so At this point, I'm comfortable with... Is Romina going to start being affected by the bugs? Entering the lair of the shadow, I'm going to give them both new animal handling checks to see how they go. Romina does very well. Vint does well enough. So entering the shadow's lair. I make that sound way more interesting than it is. They're basically entering the room where the shadow is. They both make new animal handling checks and both pass. No more disadvantage. Okay, so they enter. And immediately, where do I want to put the pit trap? Is it right near this door? Like, was it the opening to the basement near this door so it could be used as storage for stuff in the forge without having to walk too far? No. Okay. So is it closer to is it close to either of these doors so that like people could just walk in and go straight down? No. Okay, so is it basically part way between the doors and therefore in the middle? No. Okay, is it over in the corner near where the shadow is? Yes. Okay. So the pit trap is. I'm going to mark this in a blue will do. The pit trap is over here, and I'm actually going to make it sort of quite large. So this was an opening where they could open the door and there would be sort of steps and a ladder down, but it's got this weird tarp over it, maybe falling down a bit, so it may be a little bit visible. And the shadow, which I have here now. I'm looking at the image of the shadow. I'm going to say the shadow itself doesn't like it can't fly or anything, but I'm going to say because it while it's in dim light or darkness, it can do all sorts of stuff. It's not going to go outside because it needs shadows. In here, it's quite shadowy, but it can squeeze through narrow spaces and stuff. Now in here, there's a lot of actually, I should have changed this to a different. I'm going to use different color for the stuff in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and say there are sort of several pillars, and then I'm going to turn around and say there are other obstructions in here, which I should have put these onto the map layer. So let me just quickly select these. So I'm going to select these and I'm going to move them to the map layer. Then I'm going to move to the map layer and then I'm going to draw in some. Actually, I think this wouldn't actually be too packed. Like I might put another bench in. Let's use some brown. I might put another bench in here and I might put a bench in here. But this would mostly be an open area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this as an open area. And then I'm going to go back to the object layer. And as you can see, the tokens have come out. And I'm going to say that the shadow, because it's not heavy and can squeeze through narrow areas and stuff, I'm actually going to put the shadow over here, where it is aware of what's going on. And do the PCs see it? Like it can be hidden. I'm going to make a hide roll for the shadow because the shadow has the ability to hide even in the middle of combat, basically. And it can hide as a bonus action. So it could sort of disappear around a pole and become very, very hard to see. Um, man, it's resistant to a lot of stuff. So this is going to be a very hard fight for our heroes. Um, so it's over there. Is it already hidden? No. So the PCs have a chance to see it. Now it's in a dim light, so let's make perception checks roll for them. And Vint sees it. Like Vint is immediately like, there is something over there, and Romina is like, okay, well, this is something that we should investigate. And do they move up in? I think they're in a combat ready stance because he was sort of expecting undead, and they've already met one, and he's aware that there's something moving that's not bugs. So they're in a combat ready stance, so they're unlikely to be surprised, but I don't think they're in initiative yet. So they will move up together, and they get to, I think, slowly move up and they'll get to here, which is where they've got a much better line of sight. The pole's not in the way. Actually, they might have to move a little bit further because of other stuff. So they'll come into the middle of the room. And I think this is where they come into combat because, as I said, it's dim in here. The doors are closed. All of the windows are closed. The shadow would have done this somehow if it could have. And everything is sort of the only light really is coming in from behind them through the open doors. The bugs are still in here, but that's not really bothering them too much. So you've got this dark sort of barn which is crawling with movement and light is coming in through the slats, but it's all dim and there's all of these weird shadowy effects, and there's some sort of figure in the corner which is moving and looking at them, and it's hostile because they've picked up the thing that that had corrupted it and damaged its soul. Why? I don't know. We'll get to that. Maybe. Does it matter? The thing itself is fine. I think that's important for the story, but the thing that happened to it with all of the corruption is here now. And at this point, is the shadow just going to attack them because they've got the thing? Yeah, it is. So at this point, we enter combat. Like they can see it sort of rearing up, and it raises its shadowy arms and sort of starts to move towards them in a hostile way. And they're combat ready. So we just go into initiative. So we go into an encounter with a shadow. I don't think I've ever done an encounter with a shadow in 5e. So this will be interesting. So we'll have to do initiative. Now, we do need to put hit points into this. Now, Romina's at 13, Vint is at 10, and the shadow is going to have... I'm just using base here, by the way. I could roll... Whoops, that did not change. I could use, I'm just using average hit points. I could roll, creatures can have more or less hit points than the average, but an average is a good number to give a balanced encounter. So now we do initiative. So we remember that Romina and Vint were each on +2. So let's do Romina and Vint. I've got different colors for them. So Romina is on 19. Vint is on 6. There's always a thing where the spellcasters always seem to be terrible. And the shadow has no initiative, so it's at normal. So it's after Romina. So the shadow is on 14. Okay. So Romina gets to go first, which is not great for Romina because she's going to do her trick of moving up and attacking. She gets to make a perception check, but it's going to be... No, she's actually focused on combat or everything. So she gets to move up. She doesn't notice the pit trap. Or she may notice it. What was the difficulty on noticing the pit trap? Because that was in the previous one. Notice DC 12. Now, she rolled a 12 and she's got a perception bonus. Now, this is where a passive should come in. And as I said, I'm not particularly fond of passive. So her perception is +3. So she rolled a 15, but she's not actively looking at the moment. So I'm going to roll again and take the average of the two rolls. Now, that's not a mechanic in D&D. It's just something I'm doing. She makes it dead on. So she steps onto the thing and manages to sort of pull back. So I'm going to turn around and say she's kind of stopped here and she's like started to put her weight forward. And now what she's got to do is she noticed it almost in time, but not quite in time to stop herself falling. So in the journal, I turned around and said, there is a saving throw to save or disarm, which is DC 13. So I'm going to say that she can make a saving throw to avoid falling in, and I'm going to let her use her strength to sort of pull herself back. Like normally it would be dexterity, but her dexterity is worse than her strength. And because she kind of noticed, I'm going to say that she can sort of use the muscles in her leg to pull her back. So she can make a strength saving throw to try and avoid falling in. And she... hang on, 8 + 5 is 13. She makes it. I rolled an 8. So she actually makes it. So she doesn't fall in, but she's kind of spent her movement and everything doing this. And so Romina steps forward and doesn't notice the pit and almost falls until it starts to collapse under her, but she manages to keep her footing, but her loses her momentum and is unable to approach over the open pit. So she's kind of left sort of standing there with nothing to do. She had not prepared an attack. She arranged attack or anything. So she's got to there and she's like, I don't know what to do. She's got two swords and scimitars in her hand and she's unable to reach the shadow. And I'm going to say that normally what you could do is you could use the rest of your movement to then move away or anything. But I'm going to say that because of her role, she's lost that. Vint, however, is able to do stuff. He's going to move forward. He's going to turn to face it, and he's going to do the throwing the flame thing. This is a cantrip. Cantrips in D&D are things that you can do multiple times. So he's going to try and throw a cantrip and hit the shadow with a produce flame. So I've been saying that that's at +3. Hopefully that's going to be able to hit a shadow, and then it does a d8 damage. So I'm going to roll. He hits armor class 15, which is enough to hit a shadow, and does 6 points of damage to the shadow. So the shadow goes down to 10. I don't believe the shadow has resistance to any of... No, it does. So he does 6 points of damage, but the shadow is resistant to fire. So it only takes 3 points of damage. So that is not great for Vint. He notices that most of the fire, sort of as it hits the shadows, some of the fire spreads out and seems to sort of run across the skin of the shadow, but a lot of it passes through and hits the wall behind. A very strange effect. Vint wasn't supposed to go first. The shadow was. Now, the shadow does not have reach, I don't think. No, it doesn't. Its reach is 5. Is that a typo? I'm going to look up shadow online because that seems like a typo to me. No, I just read it wrong. Ah, there we go. Well, this is a deadly fight. So the shadow does have to move. So it's going to move. Now, it could move towards Vint or Romina. Romina is closer, but Vint actually hurt it. So I'm just going to do a die roll. D6 is what I normally do. 1 to 3 is Vint. 4 to 6 is Romina. It's going to go for Romina. So it's basically going to float over ground, so it's got some thing and get some cover from Vint, though that's not going to be that meaningful to it. And it's going to try reach out and push its hand into Romina, which is going to be a very unpleasant effect because the shadow gets a strength drain attack. And what that means is as it reaches out to touch her, we'll see what happens if it hits actually. So I'm going to roll that first. It misses. So it completely misses. So it reaches out to touch Romina and she's able to sort of sidestep its touch as it sort of reaches out to touch her. And that's very, very good for our heroine. So, that's what happens here, and then we go back to, if I remember that, then we do Vint, and then we go back to Romina, and I won't get, so Vint will have had to have, say, moved up here, and I'm not too worried about staying on squares to do his attack. Now we'll go back to Romina, who's going to do, now that the shadow is in a place, she's literally just going to try and double sword this thing, because she's not aware of the threat that she's facing, because, ow! So, she's going to hit at it with her sword. Critical. So roll a 20, so she gets 2 damage dice. Now the first one wasn't great, it was only a 1. The second one was a 3. So she does, instead of 4 points of damage, she does another 3. She does 7 points of damage. But the shadow is resistant to non-magical slashing damage. So it only, instead of 7, it only takes 3 points of damage, but that does drop it to 10 hit points. Youch. That was with her first attack. With her second attack, she misses. So she's like, her blade goes through it, and while there's a little bit of resistance for passing through where the shadow is, she's aware that a lot of her strength just was not taken up. And it's like that put her off balance, and her second attack, where she expected to sort of get some resistance from hitting a creature, didn't happen, and therefore she was wild with her second attack, and hopefully she'll be able to balance out. The shadow is now going to reach out and try and hit at Romina. And again, I roll a 5. It's going to miss, which is really, really good. But it's going for Romina. I'm assuming Romina at this point is carrying the item. Actually, let's confirm that. No, Romina's carrying the item. Screw the dice. Romina's carrying the item, which is why it's going for Romina. Vint is going to do the same trick as last time. Although he can move up now and he's not aware of the threat. Does he know about shadows? No, not at all. He's going to move up and use his shillelagh because that's happened quite a lot, and his shillelagh is really good because he gets +5 and a D8. So let's do that. He's going to hit out at the shadow because, unknowns to him, his shillelagh is a magical weapon. I mean, he does know it is, but he does, because it's a magical weapon, because he's used his spell to make it, that one of the side effects of it is it turns it into a magical weapon. He is going to do full damage if he hits with it. Of course, he misses. So go Vint. We now go back to Romina, who is going to attack. She hits. She hits for 8 points of damage, which becomes 4. So this thing drops to 6 hit points, and they can tell. It's like, we should have dropped this. This is, it's sort of every time it's like it got this horrible effect, and it's going to reach out and it's absolutely going to try and tear into Romina. And this time it does. It reaches out and it reaches into Romina and rakes its claws, these shadowy claws. And as it goes into Romina, she feels this coldness, and she doesn't feel claws. She feels this cold effect running down her. And what then happens is she takes a chunk of damage. She takes 10 points of damage. So she goes down to 3 hit points. On top of that, she loses 1 point of strength. So her strength drops down to, let's do it here. Romina minus 1 strength until short or long rest. So she is down 1 strength point. Now her strength is odd, which I think means that she can lose a strength without having any negative effect. If she loses another, she's going to start being less powerful to hit. Nope. Yes, she's now 16 strength, so she's just as effective in combat, but if she loses another point of strength, then she's going to be less effective in combat. So she's like, what just happened? Like, she's weaker for the first time in a very long time. She is not happy. The open, this is a pit. So, ew. Ah. So now we go into Vint's turn. Vint is absolutely going to hit at it with his shillelagh. Let's see how he goes. Vint misses again. Best weapon in the fight. He's not doing well. Romina is now incredibly motivated. Now, you may notice I'm not using advantage here. Now, advantage is a D&D system where people can pull out a heroic effort. I've not used it in the past. I'm in the wrong section. So, after being strength drained, Romina uses her advantage. So, advantage is a I should give it to both. Is something is a D&D mechanic, which basically means that you can. Sorry, it's inspiration. I should say. Sorry, Inspiration. Inspiration is a D&D mechanic, which means that your heroes can pull out a heroic moment. So it's like, I don't want to miss this with a saving throw or with an attack or something like that. They could turn around and say, I need to make this. So they get to make it with advantage, and they get to call when they use it, but they need to do it before they roll. And how often they get it is dependent on the story or anything like that. I'll probably do it per mini scenario. I'm not going to do it per session, probably. We'll see how it goes. Like, if they win this and get to a long rest, which they probably will, they'll probably get it back. The suggestion in the book is there's a mini form of inspiration that you can use where they get inspiration back, and they've got different forms of inspiration they can call on, which is a little bit less powerful. And I might look into that. But at this point, Ramina's using her inspiration because she doesn't want to miss with her main attack. So she makes her first attack using her inspiration with advantage. and she hits the thing. This is good because her first roll would have actually been a fumble, like would have rolled a 1. So she hits for 7 points of damage, which is rounded down to 3. So she hits the thing for 3 points of damage, which is not enough to kill it, unfortunately. Um, so she's now facing a shadow that is going to attack her. And so if you know anything about a d20, I've rolled an 8 and it was sitting on the 20 and then rolled onto the 8. Now, an 8 with this is going to be armor class 12, and Romina has armor class 14. So what happens there is it reaches out to touch Romina and it hits her armor, and her armor is enough for it touches her armor and it can't quite push through her armor. It basically glances off her armor with its spectral touch, which is very, very fortunate for our heroine. And now we go to Vint, who may get to take the killing blow if he can hit with his shillelagh. And he can. He only hits for 3 points of damage, though, but that is enough to drop the shadow to 0, and the shadow wails in horror and dissipates and wafts into nothingness. Holy cow. So, I'm not going to continue. She hits it, but it is Vint that manages to pull off the killing blow with his shillelagh. I can never spell shillelagh. So let's go here, grab shillelagh, and paste that in. Okay, so I will roll for treasure and what is in the room next session. So I'm going to call that the end of the session because I've been going a lot longer than normal. This is nearly 100 minutes, but I've been having a lot of fun. I hope you've all enjoyed it. That was really, really intense. Our heroes are wounded. I am going to use their healing surge. No, they're going to get a chance to rest. So what they'll do is they'll immediately take a short rest in the next session. They will also start with a short rest. Another thing I'll do with this campaign is I'm probably not going to interrupt short rests very often unless they're in a location where it is likely to happen. But yeah, if you're enjoying the series, please like the videos, leave comments. I will be releasing these videos. If you're seeing this this having been released to the main channel, welcome. But these are initially being released in an unlisted playlist, but I'm hoping to release these as time goes on. Thank you everyone for watching. Hope you're enjoying the series, and yeah, hope you're enjoying all of the other content on the channel as well. This is Bremster, and I'll be back for another session at some point in the near future. Bye.